Well, hello, everybody, and happy Monday. Thank you so much for tuning in to Act 3 on CHLY 101.7 FM right here in beautiful Nanaimo. We are delighted that you're joining us today. And more specifically, I'm delighted to share with you a reoccurring guest, Miss Mid. Well, I just said her name wrong. Well, there you go. I mean, you've been a recurring guest. We already start with me messing up people's names. We know that it's my trademark. Micki Findlay, how are you? Good to
I'm
see
good,
you.
Kathy. No
Oh, it's
problem.
it's so funny. As I don't know why that happens. And all of a sudden it feels like a little bit of a brain thing. I know you. I know your name. I've used your name before. As I said, you're a recurring guest, but for whatever reason, sometimes when I started off, who knows? But
Girl,
Mickey,
you're preaching to the choir. This lady, I'll tell you, I'll just, it's like anybody. I get up from my chair, and 2 minutes later, it's whatever I was going to do, it's gone. So I
yeah,
get it.
been there, done that. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. But I'm here to have this conversation with you because you are sharing with us some really groovy stuff within, the community. You've been doing quite a bit of working on memoirs and, you've done quite a bit of writing. In particular, for our listeners who may not recall just off the top of their head, I'll remind them that you have been published several times in the Chicken Soup for the Soul series. You've written your own works as well. And now you're sharing with us a new memoir compilation, and I can't wait to hear all about it. How would you like to start sharing a little bit with us?
I'd love to. Thank you, Kathy. Um, well, first of all, I'll show you what it looks like. It's backwards to the camera, I guess, but it's called Back the Way We Came. And it's 11 fearless women voice their untold stories. Some of these stories have never seen, I think all of these stories have never seen the light, actually. And it's a wonderful team effort. Yeah.
I love the idea that a group of women have come together to share their stories because I think that sometimes we have stories inside of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Things that
Yeah.
have happened to us. And it really takes a lot of courage to put a pen to paper, right?
No,
So, what
absolutely.
inspires you to do that? First of all, let's start with you and then let's talk about some of the stories that are inside the book. Um, why memoirs?
I think, Kathy, because I want people to be encouraged. So, when they're going through crap, which all of us have in some respects, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times we feel alone in that crap, and and the being alone is the worst thing about it in some ways because you feel like there's no hope.
Yeah.
But if I had at the time when I was going through all that stuff, in my past, if I'd had a book, if I knew known about a book like this and had read it, I would have known, hell, I'm not alone here.
Yeah.
This person understands me. They've gone through it too, and they're on the other side. So there's light at the end of the tunnel, and that's what I want to do when I write, and that's why I want to be vulnerable and honest because that's how people relate to you, right?
Yeah.
It's the connection. It's the honest connection.
And there's a growth of healing, a
Mm-hmm.
growth and a healing, not two separate things, but two very, very unique pieces that come when you're writing a memoir. I recognize for radio people can't actually see the book cover, but the cover itself is called, or the book itself is called Back to the Way, or Back the Way We Came. And I love the title, Back the Way We Came, right? It sort of, it puts a memoir in a whole new light when we're looking back on something that maybe we experienced some time ago and we've put that to paper. And it takes a lot of courage for these women to have written, these wonderful pieces. Is it possible? Do you mind highlighting some of the stories that are found in the book?
Well, probably the easiest way to do that is on the back cover. It
Yeah,
just explains, gives a quick synopsis.
for
Uh,
sure.
so first of all, the memory keepers, that's what we call ourselves. A group of 11 seasoned women share intimate stories from the perspective of time, distance, and hard-earned wisdom. These writers touch on uniquely personal yet emotionally relatable themes:
Yeah,
love, the joy and loss of deep friendship, coping with dementia, toxic relationships, which many of us can relate to,
Oh, can we ever?
including
You
me.
bet. Yeah.
Menopause, menopause and late life dating exploits. Some venture into more offbeat territory, surviving 3 months in a US jail, exploitation in a spiritual cult, corruption and rural life in West Africa, and the
Oh my
hedonistic
goodness.
1980s London drug scene. So there is a lot of variety in this book.
Holy
Others,
mackerel. There's a bunch of
yeah.
topics there that I want to read about for sure.
Others untangle intricate webs of family dynamics, physical, sexual, and psychological abuse, grief for the death of a daughter, teenage pregnancy, working with terminally ill children, and the loss of newborn grandchildren.
Wow.
Now, there's humorous, beautiful, touching, humorous parts to this too. It's not all doom and gloom, and there's a lot of power and encouragement in these stories, right? And how we came together. Would you like to know how this all came
I
together?
do. Yeah, absolutely. Let's go there.
Well, all these ladies, except for me, live in England. I am the adopted Canadian. So how we came together is we were all students of Memoir Writing Inc., which is a fabulous writing course by Alison Waring. And we are all alumni of this writing group. So anyway, as you know, I was published in Crone Rising by Jazz House Publications, and it's also an anthology, a memoir anthology. So one of the ladies contacted me and she said, how did you get this published? Like, and I said, tell you the truth, all I did was send in my story at the very last minute. And by the way, it wasn't even the right amount of words, but I threw it in. I said, you know what? Maybe you can use it, maybe you can't. I don't know, but here you go. And they said, we absolutely want it in our book. Anyway, this lady said, how did you do it? And so when I said I didn't really know, we got talking a little bit more. And she said, one of the ladies pulled out of our anthology. And I said, well, I don't want you to be stuck if you're needing a little bit extra writing in there. I'm willing to volunteer some of my writing. And they said, absolutely. So that's how we came together. And these ladies have been, this was all through COVID, by the way. These ladies have been working through together on Zoom the whole time,
Wow.
working on this for at least 2 years. And so little Miss Micki, I get to come in at the last minute and get all the, the credit and fame here. But really, the truth is those women were the ones that worked so hard to make this happen. So feeling a little guilty that I wasn't giving enough. I'm doing all the marketing, not all the marketing, but I've created marketing tools for the ladies to share online, and because that's my thing, right? So that's how I'm helping. So I don't feel quite so guilty about them doing all the work.
Well, at the end of the day, it takes a lot of, I mean, and you have a contribution to this as well, in the sense that you've written a story as well. Can you tell us a little bit about your contribution to the
Sure.
actual text?
Sure. Well, I actually have 2 poems in one story.
Okay,
And would you like me to just read a little bit of my
sure, that'd be grand. Go for it.
Okay. It's called Opening the Door. No one warned me how lonely marriage can be. How did I get here? Pregnant at 17, trapped in a remote town with a man I don't love, desperately missing the island where I lived nearly all my life. The winters here are relentless and the isolation unbearable. Some days I find it hard to breathe. Other days, I'm not sure I want to.
Hmm.
This is not what I planned for my life. Stumbling blindly in a maze of emotional adolescence. He and I are lost in a world neither of us chose to be in. I can just imagine his iron-fisted father berating him. Son, this is your mess, not mine. You knocked her up, deal with it. The proposal, if you can call it that, happened at a New Year's Eve party in his sister's basement. I can't recall the words, only his coal black beard glistening with driblets of rye whiskey, his breath reeking of cigarettes. I heard myself agreeing in trance-like detachment, as if in a nightmare, one in which you wake up feeling ill but aren't quite sure why. The song Lying Eyes by the Eagles echoed in the walls as if mocking us. Or was it a warning? Either way, it would prove to be chillingly prophetic.
Oh my goodness, I can resonate with that so
Oh
much. And I
no!
know well, and not necessarily from my personal experiences, but just sort of the concept, the way that you brought the emotion and the fear and the, and the uncertainty all together so masterfully. It's a
Thank you.
beautiful piece. And again, the idea is we want people to get this book. So if you want to find out more about it, then of course, if you're listening to us on YouTube or iHeartRadio or even Spotify, we will try to put the details into the chat boxes so that you will also be able to access this wonderful piece of art. I'm really curious about, that vulnerability piece that you brought to earlier of the conversation. Like, you were talking about these wonderful women who, for the last couple of years, and certainly over the COVID period, which thankfully we seem to be through, but there's a lot of residual things that have come from it, good and bad. The good news is in this case, these women came together in their vulnerability, including yourself, to masterfully write such an exquisite compilation of stories, all with truth behind them. So my question to you is, how hard was it? Or how easy was it? Like I like to think of more of the positive than the negative, but how was it that you could be so vulnerable with so many wonderful people to share these stories and bring them to fruition?
Because I'm at the age where I don't give a damn. I
Yeah.
right.
Hello.
I just think that uh, for one thing, I spent 3/4 of my life hiding,
Yeah.
pushing down the feelings, uh, hiding behind a fake smile,
Yeah.
pretending to be happy, pretending to be a strong Christian, and not able to. I was so afraid that people would look down on me or not like me or think that I was a failure of some sort or a terrible Christian, that I had to keep that facade. I thought I had to keep that facade, which
Yeah.
all that does is make you more crazy, right?
Yeah.
And more lonely. So
True.
I'm, like I said, I'm at the point in my life where I don't give a damn. And I know that I'm going to help other women if
Yeah.
I am going to be honest. And I'm in a safe place now. I'm not in an unhappy marriage. I'm in a marriage where I'm honored and I'm valued and I'm supported.
Yeah.
So slowly but surely, more and more of those layers, onion layers, came off me. And I realized that I could just be me. And my God, what a freeing feeling that is. And I want that for other women, you know.
It's true, and I think we're at a climate right now. I mean, I know that this is not related, but in a way it is. I had the great fortune of spending time with my girlfriends, recently, and we went to go and see the Barbie movie and all of the things that kind of went along with the idea of, trying so desperately in the business of living as women to just be enough. And it's a story that I know that every single woman that I have met in my career has at some level or another, at one time or another, in one moment, felt like they were not enough. And
Yes.
so I'm glad that, as we get older, we have this ability to not care so much and to be able to say, so that we can pave the way for future generations, future women, to tell their story more authentically and more quickly, right?
Absolutely.
But at the same time, I don't know about you, but I still sometimes feel like I'm not enough, right? And
Oh, me too. Even just, you know what, Kathy, it's funny you're saying that because our last interview, um, I came away after I watched it. I
yeah.
came away thinking, I was really proud of it. I was proud of it because I had been myself and I just
Yeah.
relaxed and all that thing. And then next thing I know, I'm watching another interview with some other writer, and she's all sophisticated and smart, and and I'm suddenly feeling foolish, like, who am I? And so when we during this struggle, or this journey rather, the struggles are still there, but I think that the coping mechanisms are better.
Yeah.
um I can now do self-talk. I can now recognize, oh, when I'm triggered like that, where is that coming from? I know where that's coming from, and
Yeah.
then I can work through it, right? So it's not about perfection. We're never going to be there, but the more we're aware of ourselves and the how the pain or whatever in our lives, the events in our lives affected us, the better decisions we'll make and the healthier we'll be, I feel.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I also think that at the end of the day, part of it is time and age, right? What part of it is kind of going through those obstacles and doing the work, right? And
Yeah.
it's hard to do the work, but the work doesn't have to be, I mean, it's beneficial if you're able to go to counseling or to different areas, but it's equally as beneficial to write out your story in the format of a memoir. So you can then now come back to yourself and say, oh, when you look back on some of your early writings, even compared to now,
Yeah.
when you started this journey a few years ago, because I think the first time we interviewed, or I interviewed you, was on Shaw Studios. You were in at our studio when I had a show called Wise Folks, like back 5 years ago. And
Right.
then you came on to Act Three in the early years of Act Three. And then during COVID, you came on the show a couple of times as well when we were finding locations because the studio wasn't open and like there was all kinds of things. I noticed myself that 5 years ago, I'm a different interviewer even than I was, than I am today. So
Right.
I'm curious about that from your early writings when you were writing from Chicken Soup for the Soul in the very beginning, and you were sharing, the fabulous way you met your husband and all of that cool stuff that went with it. Do you see yourself after doing the work of your memoirs to change significantly from those early days?
In writing or personality?
Maybe both.
Well, writing definitely. I mean, the story of meeting my second husband was delightful because it was kind of a miracle. It
Really
was,
was fabulous. It's such a good story.
but the way I wrote it, I mean, I look back and I'm actually a little embarrassed about my writing from back then because when I took Alison Waring's course, Memoir Writing Inc., I actually thought I was a pretty good writer. I thought, I'm a pretty good writer.
I got
You know
this.
what? I took that course and I thought, oh my God, I'm just a little baby bird that's just, just getting fed this. Yeah. And I just opened my mouth wide and said, bring it on. I want to learn more. And so I do see my writing uh, is more effective now because I'm more in touch with uh, the feelings
Yeah.
that I had in those events. Um, I learned how to write in a way that it's more showing rather than telling. So, for instance, I don't want to I don't want to write just about, well, it's a cold wintry day. I want to write about how the snow crunches under my galoshes and
Yeah.
the taste and tickle of a snowflake on my tongue. That's showing rather than telling. So that's where I've certainly gotten better. As for my personality, I believe I've changed somewhat because there's been healing that has happened. As you mentioned, writing memoir is definitely a healing process. I've done lots of crying, but then I've brushed myself off and I've been more aware of myself and more joyful.
I
Yeah,
I think that one of the things I love about interviewing people, especially someone that I've interviewed in the past, is seeing that change, right? Seeing it in the joy, in the way that tell a story now is different than the way you may have, as you said it a few years back. But I also am absolutely gobsmacked at the fact that every single person has something interesting to say if only we would take the time to listen, right?
absolutely. Yeah.
And so encouraging people to write their memoir is a really honorable and brilliant way not only to tell the story, but to leave the legacy for your family behind, right?
Well, absolutely. A lot of the students that come to More Writing Inc. Are just grandmas that want to leave something for their grandchildren.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily want to write a book. Other people come and they want to write short stories, and that seems to be where I fit.
Yeah.
I'm as you know, I'm trying to write the book.
Yeah.
God, it's
Yeah.
hard because I so distracted, right? And I get excited for a while, and I get writing, and then I'm like, oh, so it's not easy. It's not easy. Yeah.
Well, there's something to be said as well for the distraction part of it, right? Like I am not a writer. I write, right? It's my job to write, so I write, but I'm not an artist in it.
Right.
I find that, there's a certain kind of perfunctory styling that goes with with writing that is for business or for a project or for something like that. But true writers like yourself are very creative, right? And by the way, just for our listeners who also may not be aware, you are very creative and you make all kinds of incredible crafts and you sell those crafts as well. Maybe you'd like to share a little bit about the artistic side of not only your written word, but also some of the other stuff that you've been doing.
Oh, sure. Well, I started a little company with my friend who moved away to Edmonton after a while, but together we started a little business called A2C Creations. A as in big A, number two, and then SEA Creations. And actually, it all started because the art gallery in Nanaimo put on a little craft show, a little Christmas craft show, and I thought, well, I'll make something. So I made these glass ball ornaments with shells and sand inside. You've probably seen those kind of things. So they sold really well. So my friend said, Cheryl said, you know what? We should make a bunch of those and try and sell them. Well, oh my goodness. What started with a few glass balls ended up to be message in a bottle and mermaid treasure bottles and oyster candles, shell candles, and on it went. Now I make jewelry. So mostly I sell to a lovely store on the quay in Nanaimo, in the harbor there, called Newfoundland Nanaimo. And then on my little Etsy shop. Matter of fact, I just got a big order right now that my lovely hubby have helped tag all my stuff today, which,
Oh, wonderful. Well,
yeah, I really appreciate his support.
congratulations. I'm so glad to hear that you're doing really, really well. We've got a whole bunch more to unpack. But before we do, I'm just going to take a moment for a little quick station identification and then we'll get back to it. So if you have just tuned in, thanks for doing that on this very fine Monday. I hope that you have been enjoying your summer. Most of all, I hope that you've been able to handle the heat really well. I know that the temperatures have risen a few times over this last month or so, and I really do want you to be encouraged that, we're paying attention to these temperature changes. And so I invite you to really check on your neighbors, make sure everybody's doing okay. Make sure pets, if you're outside with your beloved pets, make sure that you're checking the temperature on their little paws so they don't get hurt. There's wonderful tips that you can find out about on the last two episodes of Act 3 on Shaw Spotlight. You can watch us 4 times a day on Shaw Cable 4. You can also find us on our YouTube channel. So I encourage you, if you haven't already liked and subscribed our channel, why not? Please go ahead and do that. We sure appreciate it if you would. But more importantly, we're really glad that you tune into CHLY 101.7 FM. I know that you may be doing all kinds of things this summer, but at this time of year, we're getting towards that time when we need to raise a little bit more money for our station. We can't stay on the air without your contribution. And so we really do appreciate it. If you wouldn't mind, when you're thinking about giving, think about giving some to CHLY 101.7 FM. $5 goes a really, really long way. So if you have it in your mind, we'd sure appreciate it if you would join us with that. And in the meantime, stay tuned to all the programming that we have on CHLY 101.7 FM. Because of you, we try to produce content that makes it more fun for all of our listeners. And the content today, thankfully, is Act 3 on CHLY. So in my Zoom booth with me today is Micki Findlay. She is a reoccurring guest. She's been on the program a few times. She's a fabulous writer and she's written all kinds of cool stuff. But right now, we've been talking about Back the Way We Came, the latest grouping of memoirs written by some incredible women. So I'm curious as well, when we talk about Micki, you had mentioned earlier in our program that you're the like the Nanaimo gal, but the other gals come from other places. So where are they from? Like,
All 10 ladies except for me are in England.
oh,
So
that's right.
yeah, so I am like the adopted Canadian girl. Um, because the ladies had somebody had backed out of the anthology, and I just thought, oh, I'll offer something to them, and if they need it, great,
Yeah.
take it. And so that's how it came about. So they, yeah, like I said, they kind of adopted me, and they're just great. They're feisty, brave women, and funny, and yeah, I'm just, anyway, I feel honored to be a part of this.
No
Absolutely.
kidding. And
Yeah.
this is the first group, the first book of memoirs that has been put together as in this way, right? This is not one of a series, or this
No,
is
this
just the
is just,
first.
no. Yes. Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely. Yes.
cool.
Yeah.
So and so earlier in the program, you were reading off the back of the cover and you were sharing some of the really, really cool stories that are there. When people are writing their memoir, what kind of advice might you be able to give someone to say, how do you begin to write it?
Hmm. That's one of the questions that a lot of people come up with because they don't know where to start. They don't have a
Yeah.
clue how to start. Um, and that's part of the reason I took that course, Memoir Writing Inc., because I really didn't know where to start. I knew I had a story inside me, but I needed somebody to bring it out, to help bring it out. Um, so I would suggest, really, if you can afford a writing course, it's really worth it. Memoir Writing Inc. certainly was worth it for me. I mean, I really have to attribute a lot of this, my publishing success, to that. So if you can get a writing course, great. If you can find a writing group that is interested in writing, it doesn't even need to necessarily be memoir writing, but if
Hmm.
you can find a group that's interested in writing, it is a huge, huge motivation and encouragement. I belong to one, and it we give each other little pieces of homework each time we get together. We come back and we share what we've written. Um, and then
It's
of
like an
course,
accountability partner almost.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and what I mentioned earlier was show, don't tell. That's the big thing you hear in the writing circles is express what you want to share with emotion, and really tie into that emotion rather than just saying, well, I felt upset. What did that upset? How did that come out in your body? Well, I was trembling, right? Or my breath was raspy or something like that. So you want to show, not tell, when you're writing about memoir. And you really got to be, it's not for everybody. You really have to be willing to be vulnerable and honest,
Yeah.
because that's what people will relate to. That's where the human connection is, right?
Yeah, and I'd like to talk about the connection piece because I think that that's how the stories become alive, is that people identify. And a lot of the people that I've had on the program over the years, they have come to a place of true vulnerability, right? Where they're able to help one listener see themselves in a different place. And you do that as well. There's something really important, I think, about putting yourself out there in such a way that your frailty becomes less powerful, right, in the story. So for example, you were talking about, your first marriage in the story that you've written for Back the Way We Came. And I could feel when you were reading that segment, this frustration and anger and fear of what is the future going to bring. And I could smell that bourbon or whatever the alcohol was on the mustache. And so, and I agree with what you're saying. You need to show, not tell. But how do we get to that place, right? Beyond the vulnerability piece, the tools and the tests that we have to use words and language that actually does illustrate that.
Yes, and how you get there, part of the way you get there is the difficult way. It's not easy because you're really going back to those events that were so painful. And that doesn't mean every memoir needs to be painful, by the way. There's some beautiful
No,
memoirs that are just absolutely lovely and happy. And as long
of
as the
course.
writing is really good and draws you in, it doesn't matter, right? But I just, because of my past, I choose to write the tougher stuff, right?
Yeah.
Tougher as in feeling tougher, you know, painful things. Um, so you have to go kind of back into that event and try and picture yourself. What were you feeling? What were you smelling? And that's difficult.
Yeah.
So, so you go through some of that pain over again, but then, like I said earlier, what happens often happens is healing comes of that, and that's the gift. That's the gift, right?
Do you have some favorite writers, some people that you're drawn to more than others?
Mm, I don't know. As I admitted earlier, I don't read much, and that is so embarrassing because I'm a
Well, it
writer.
shouldn't be.
But I,
Honestly, it shouldn't be at all because I confess, right?
no.
It goes back to, you know, the mechanic who's got the broken car in front of his house, right? Or the window washer who's got dirty windows at home. So
Yeah.
it's so natural and so normal to not participate in something that you do as a craft, because when it's part of that craft, the thing that you're doing, it takes all of your focus. It's hard to go outside of that, I think.
Well, and I swear I was never ever diagnosed, but I swear I have ADHD because I can't concentrate very long. And so I'm pulled in very easily by social media and anything that's quick and easy. And I think that's why I'm drawn to short stories, is because I can do that, right?
Mhm.
So in my embarrassment of not reading, I used to read a lot. I did before social media. Used to read a lot, but in my embarrassment, I have to say I hadn't read all the stories in this book, and I thought, well, that's not good. So I, so I did. I read it, and I was shocked that I wasn't bored 1 minute. I didn't
Yeah.
feel like I needed to go on the computer. I didn't feel like I had to whatever. I was
Well,
absolutely, and I'm not.
you're getting engaged in the stories. I mean, on the back cover, you were reading about how someone was in jail. I would want to know why. Like, I'd be curious about hearing that full story,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so many of the other pieces, right? And because they're true, they're things that have really happened to
Well,
people.
absolutely. And it's not, I know it sounds like shameless advertising, and maybe partly is, but I really mean it when I say this book captivated a very easily distracted woman. And when, after reading it, I was even
Yeah.
more honored to be a part of this because I thought this is damn good reading. So yeah, I'm thrilled to be a part of it. That's for sure.
Well, I'm thrilled that you're a part of it as well, and I'm very, very thrilled that you get to share it with us today for sure. I know that when we talk about the writing component and we talk about, you know, joining groups and joining clubs and all of that stuff, you also had mentioned that this particular project was something that was being done during COVID. COVID was really a way of centering, I think, ourselves into some level of focus, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that COVID was a hinder or a help when it came to you writing some of the stuff that you've been writing along with this particular entry in the book?
Um, I think it was more of a help, and I almost feel embarrassed saying that because a lot of people suffered through COVID. You know, a
Yeah,
lot of people lost jobs. A lot of
of
people
course.
really had a hard time. But I did not go through a really hard time with COVID. And being a writer, I'm already kind of isolated from people a lot, which is why I push myself to go out and spend time with friends because becoming a writer, you get kind of cloistered and you know
Sure.
into yourself. So I would say COVID in a way helped because I didn't have a lot of choice. I needed to concentrate on things that I kind of let slide before. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And did you find with the group it was easier to get people to come together because of Zoom and because of some of the other ways of connection now?
Well, as I don't know if I had mentioned this earlier, but I really was not a huge part of this. The other ladies were the ones that got together and did all this work, getting this together and figured
Yeah.
out on
Yeah.
Zoom. So I was the lucky one that came at the end, and
And just
you
sort
know,
of swooped in and
yeah,
yeah, for
yeah.
sure.
So I wasn't a part of the whole process. So I just help the ladies with now with the marketing and things like that. So that's the way I can help. But yeah, I don't know
But
if
I
I
think
have.
that everyone has a purpose when it comes to writing books and putting things together. And so if that's where it worked for you to be able to come in and swoop in and do that, but that's a talent in itself. So would you mind sharing, because a lot of our listeners are actually going to university right now and they're thinking about they're maybe on summer break at the moment, but they're nonetheless they're still thinking about assignments and thinking about how do I get this published? Was there, I know that you fell upon it fortunately with one of your pieces, but not all of your pieces. It's, what does a rejection letter feel like?
Well, I get plenty. So
We all do. We
yeah,
all do.
yeah. I think I, I I'm just kind of used to it. And I think because I've told myself and read it from other writers uh, that it's just a given. I mean,
Yeah.
you look at J.K. Rowling; she had 12, I think, 12 rejections for Harry Potter series, and now she's what, probably the most richest woman in the world. So it's all very subjective, right? I mean, when
Yeah.
somebody's looking at your writing, they're looking at it through their own sieve and their own
Sure.
needs and their own experience, right? And their own personality. So I just try to remember that. At first it was a little hurtful. I thought, darn. But now it's like, okay, whatever. You just keep going. You don't stop. You don't say to yourself, well, I can't write because somebody didn't like what I wrote. And to remember, there's zillions of stories that come in, and they have to try and figure out which is going to be the winner, or what are they going to include. And so just don't give up, because sooner or later something's going to happen, that like it did with me.
Yeah, I agree. I think you can't give up, and you're absolutely right. For every audience, there is a lens that goes with that, and you just have to keep on going and keep on trying, and
Yeah.
But I wonder if you could share your experience when it came to Chicken Soup for the Soul series and the acceptance letter. I mean, you must have just gone through the roof and were like woohoo, right?
Well, yeah, I was surprised. Especially because 10,000 stories they had to sift through to get, and so I really, being a person who still struggles with, am I good enough, as we talked about earlier, right?
Yeah.
And have to still work through that and tell myself, yes, I'm enough. It was a shock for me. I really didn't think. I mean, I thought, okay, the story's pretty good, but to actually have that letter come in, that is a pretty cool feeling.
No kidding. No
Yeah.
kidding. And now these 11 women, these incredible 11 women who have been, working so hard in Back the Way We Came, the book of memoir with these beautiful stories in it. Was this for them that same excitement, that same, I know it's hard to speak for other people, but, sort of like, here's the book, it's ready, it's done, like the elation from a group effort.
Well, we're going to have a Zoom meeting this Friday, so I will have a better idea of those feelings when I'm face to face with the ladies in England, for sure. But so really, I'm going to just guess from a few emails and whatnot. And just the feeling that I've had is that not only excitement but relief, because it really was hard work, right? I mean, you got 11 different women with different personalities,
Yeah.
right? And there's going to be squabbles, and there's going to be differences of opinion, and there's going to be, you know, sometimes you take things personally when it's memoir, especially because that's reflects you, right?
Yeah, this is your story. This is your
Yeah,
life on the table. Yeah.
absolutely. So I have to give kudos to these women who've gone through, all these tumultuous things to get to this point. and to actually have that book in their hand. I put together a collage of each lady holding the book because I thought that that would be kind of cool. So,
That's very, very cool. And from England, are they inviting you to come and stay with them and see how the life in the UK is and do
well, not
some
yet, but thank you very much for that idea.
I'm
I'll
just
certainly
I'm
bring
just
that up.
dropping I'm just dropping that little seed into the book is written. Now it's time you need to do the promotional tour. What do you
Yeah,
find to be
absolutely.
what do you find to be the most joyful part of writing when you finished a piece and you've been doing like what brings you joy out of the written word?
Hmm. I would say when it's finally done and I have that piece and I can look at it and feel, I mean, not that you ever have a perfect piece of writing. Writers are terribly hard on themselves usually, right?
Yeah.
But when you finally decide this is it and you read it to somebody else, especially that gives me joy because often I don't you don't always know how your story is going to affect somebody. But when
Yes.
you're, when you're with a group of women and you're or whoever and you're reading a story and you see somebody with a tear in their eye or they're just, oh my God, they say something wonderful about your writing, it just makes you realize that, hey, there's a reason I'm supposed to be doing this.
Yeah.
And when they say, thank you for that, because my life, I'm going through this. And now you're telling me there's hope, right? That
Yeah.
gives me a lot of joy. A lot
Yeah.
of joy. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that there's something really quite fantastic knowing that you've made an impact on another person's life. This
Well,
just,
yeah, absolutely. You don't know what people are going through. I mean, I was that jolly, bubbly woman who, with the fake smile, who was thinking suicide all the time. Nobody could have ever known. Nobody. And even my closest friends, I didn't tell them. So to be able to say to other people, let that facade go, leave it, and reach out and be honest about what you're going through. It's so important because who knows, somebody else is going through the same thing too.
well,
So,
I think that there's a bit about being angels on the earth, right? So, and it can come through many, many different ways, right? It can come through our pet, it can come through our neighbor, it can come through a story, it can come through a Facebook post. You never know what's going on in another person's life.
right,
Um, and it's again, like when we started at the top of the hour, we talked a little bit about the courage it takes to put it down on paper, right?
yeah.
And so it's a good way to start is to just write it all down. And I don't know about you, but there's something so therapeutic about even not having something published. Just the idea of taking this heaviness or this joy. I mean, it doesn't always have to be, as you said, it's not always a negative thing. And people sort of, when we think about going through stuff, a lot of people will tend to go to the negative. I personally prefer to live on the positive side and read the joyful things, but I know that I learn more from tragedy than I do from joy.
Right, right. Yes.
So there's something to be said by identifying with another human and doing it through the written word. So I'm glad, that these 11 women and yourself have taken that on to say, hey, you're not alone here. And the
No.
stories, like you said, some of them are, I'm sure, very inspiring and fun and joyful, and others are teachable moments.
Mhm.
Speaking of teachable moments, when it comes to writing, how do you find writing? I should reframe my question. I like books. I like the smell of paper. I'm very old fashioned in that regard. I want to turn a page. I want to do that. Are you, when you do write, although you don't read often, you've admitted that already a couple times, so we'll stick with you there. But a lot of people are like, they like the tablets for traveling and for other things. Is this book available on tablet? Have you incorporated technology in your writing now as you move ahead and move forward with new adventures in writing?
So I'm a little confused about what you're asking. Are you asking, do I work on the computer or laptop or notepad,
No,
or
I'm
do I
asking
write
you.
by hand?
No, I'm asking if when you're reading something, because you said that you like to, that
Oh,
you
I
like to
see.
use
Yes,
your
yes.
tablets and stuff, right? So, and when you're thinking about the way that people receive the work that you've done, is it, are you hoping people are more paper oriented? Are you hoping they're more like, is your book available now that it's done? Is it available online for purchasing by, in a technical format? You can see I'm not
I
even getting the words right on that. That's
Yeah,
how
I
old
think I know
fashioned
what
I
you
am.
mean. I think I know what you mean. Well, it's on Amazon, and I should know this. Sorry, but I don't know this. But I do
That's okay.
believe it'll. If it isn't on Kindle yet, it should be. It will be.
Okay.
Um, I'm pretty sure. And I don't care how people read the stories, as long as they read them and they mean something to them. Then, because some people are,
They're
they're
more tech
computer
savvy.
people, right?
I have a friend who doesn't keep a book in her house, but she takes her Kindle everywhere and she has,
Right.
like that's just how she prefers to read. I don't like it. I like a book. I want to pack it with me. I want to read it on the bus or whatever.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
like paper. I like the smell of paper. That's how I prefer to
right.
read my writing. So I'm curious then, when it comes to this available on Amazon, is
Mhm.
there a website or how can people acquire this book?
Well, the easiest thing is probably to go to my website. Um, and when you click on, there's a little thing that says more on the header. When you
Yeah.
click on more, you'll see memory keepers. And when you click on that, you'll see a whole landing page of and where to buy the book. And it's on Amazon UK, it's on Amazon Canada, US. It's easy to find.
Well, and Amazon is where a lot of people find their reading material now, to be honest with you. And so I'm really glad that they've made it so easy for people to access literature because I think it's important. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Well, and also we are going out to libraries as well,
Mhm.
and also approaching um, independent bookstores with the book as well, because it's important to be able to support your local bookstores if you can.
Absolutely.
Some people can't. Some people it's just easier for them to do the Amazon thing. But whatever way you do it, um, that's your yeah your choice.
Well, you've given us some definite food for thought. I know I'll be looking for the book, that's for sure. The book is called Back the Way We Came. It's a group of fantastic women who've gotten together to write some memoirs, and the stories will inspire you for sure. Thank you so much for being with me today, Micki. I always love catching up with you and talking. And of course,
Likewise.
we're coming to the best part of what I think the best part of the show is my favorite part of the show, which is, the life lesson, the wisdom, the takeaway. If you
Right.
could, right, if you could imbibe with our public what you feel is the most important part about all of this, whether it's this story or whether some of the other things that you've done, what might that look like for you?
Well, I knew you were going to ask, so I'm kind of cheating. Um, I'm
Hi.
doing.
Oh,
I,
the good news is you're a regular guest, so you know that that's how I'm going to ask it. I love it. It's so important.
well, as you know, every day for an entire year, I wrote a story, 50-word memoir story, and so I also decided to host a contest on my website. People
That's
can
right. I forgot about the contest. Let's talk
yes,
about that. Yes, yes.
so anybody can enter from all over the world a 50-word memoir content in my 50-word story contest. And the reason I brought it up is because one of my 50-word stories I wrote goes well with what you just asked. So I'll just read it to you.
Please do. Yes, please.
We need each other's stories. My soul gasps a sigh of relief when someone's truth causes me to say, "What? You too? I thought it was just me." Does it make my problem go away? No. Does it fill me with hope knowing I'm not alone? Absolutely. Our stories matter. So, just a simple 50-word memoir story.
What a great, simple 50-word story, and what an inspiring one to be true. I agree with you 1,000%. it's the wow factor of seeing yourself in another person's eyes, reflecting on
Absolutely.
the fact that you're not alone. Yes.
Absolutely. All right. Do you want me to read one more?
Yes.
How
One
much
more.
time do you have? Do you want me to
Enough
read
for one
two
more.
more? Okay. Place your hand on your heart. Its pulse is proof of a miracle. The miracle is you. You're not here by accident. You're here by design. Your worth is immeasurable. Once you grasp this, you'll have the power to change not only your own life, but maybe even someone else's.
Well, with that, Micki Findlay, let's tell people where your website is. How can they reach you? Because I just think that everybody, yeah, I think there's another book coming with 50-word memoirs for 365 days. How do people
Okay,
find you?
www.mickifindlay.com. So it's MICKIFindlay.com.
MickiFindlay.com. Thank you for being a guest today on Act Three. So delightful to see you, and I can't wait to
Thank
give you a
you,
big
Kathy.
squish in person again very, very soon.
Me too, you big smooth.
Yeah, we're overdue. We're overdue. All right, summertime, summertime. Get out there, enjoy it as much as you possibly can. Remember to check on your neighbors, make sure everybody's doing okay right now, because you know what? Just like Micki said, we need to be with each other. We need to support each other and see each other through these wonderful eyes that we have of kindness and caring. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you next time on Act Three.